Start recording.
Yep, great. All right. Hi, everyone who's joined in. Thank you for joining us today and attending a Carnegie Mellon University alumni speaker event. Today's topic is a personal favorite of mine. It is electric vehicles in India, an inevitable future. And joining us today, we have two outstanding pioneers of the energy and EV industry, Dr. Rahul Walawalkar, who is founder and director of India Energy Storage Alliance, as well as MD of Customized Energy Solutions. And we have Sulajja Firodia Motwani, who's also joined us, who is a key member of the Firodia Group and Kinetic Engineering Group, and the founder and CEO of Kinetic Green Energy. So thank you guys for joining us today. While we go forward, I thought we'd give a quick note from our CMU alumni chapter head, Rekha Koita, for some opening comments.
Yeah, thanks, Yash. And, warm welcome to all of you, especially our two guests, Rahul, Dr. Rahul and Sulajja. It's, great to host an event with two of our own alums. So Rahul, I think, graduated in 2008 with a PhD from Carnegie Mellon in Engineering and Public Policy. And Sulajja has done her MBA from TEPR, I guess known as DSI in those days, in 1992. And I think this is going to be quite a fascinating session on, a very kind of upcoming topic, where Rahul will be talking primarily about the growth of electric vehicles in India, and Sulajja, since she's the founder of Kinetic, the whole electric business, she's going to be talking about just leading this whole initiative by example. So over to you, Yash, and thank you all for coming here and taking out the time to attend this event. I'm sure it will be worth your time.
Great, thanks Rekha. I'd also like to introduce our co-organizers who've put in a lot of hours and effort, Ashay Doshi and Anshul Bhargava, who have joined us and will be participating in our event today. And of course, thank you all attendees for joining us and participating and showing up today on a Friday, even during these COVID times. So really appreciate all of you. We have a very diverse group of individuals from various sectors, of course, energy and EVs, but we also have people from finance, banking, agriculture, you name it. And also many students who have joined in, who are hopefully aspiring to be part of this energy and vehicle movement, and those who just want to learn. So we really hope that this call is helpful and informative to all of you. On that note, I think what I'd want to do is, for those who are a little unfamiliar with electric vehicles and its presence in India, the basic idea was that the government back in 2013 thought that we should try and reduce our crude oil imports. And towards that, they set up a national electrification and mobility plan to reduce those oil imports and have around 100% electric vehicle penetration by 2030 and 225 gigawatts of renewable energy production. Towards that goal, the government also has already announced over 11,000 crore rupees in form of incentives till March 2023. And companies like Sulajja's that have come in and IESA who have been involved all along, they've really helped build the sector such that companies that are right now entering the space and that have entered the space are getting great annual growth rates, greater, some of them around 100%, and even through COVID have survived and are doing really well, hitting numbers like annual growth rates of 60%. So all in all, I think the industry is looking very well. And of course, I'll leave it up to, to both Rahul and Sulajja to talk more about it. So just before we jump into the presentation, I think one other thing we'll discuss is the format. So Dr. Rahul will speak for about 15 to 20 minutes, followed by Sulajja, who will also speak for 15 to 20 minutes. And then we'll move into a Q&A section where the attendees can ask questions directly to either of the speakers. If you have a question, please drop it down in the Q&A section right below, and we'll try and pick as many as we can during the allotted time. So without much further ado, I think let me introduce our first speaker, Dr. Rahul. Just a little background. IESA, India Energy Storage Alliance, has over 100 plus active members in the energy space and the renewable space in India, and has helped shape the national policy for over 8 years. So they've achieved a lot, and they're doing a lot of great initiatives for new and old members to build India's growth EV space. So right after you, Dr. Rahul.
Thank you very much, Yash and Ashay, Anshul, for organizing this. It's a great pleasure to be amongst the alumni network of CMU. I think the work which you guys are doing to activate this entire powerful group is really required. So I really appreciate all the work which has been doing by all the volunteers for various chapters. So without further delay, I would start with my presentation. So the theme of the presentation is driving e-mobility in India. So just as a background, in addition to IESA, I'm also President and MD for Customized Energy Solutions India, which is a fully owned subsidiary of Customized Energy Solutions headquartered in US. We are a global company with presence in 6 countries. India was the first international operation for CES. CES globally was started in 1998. In India, CES began its journey in 2010. And since then, we have also started operations now in Canada, Japan, Mexico, and most recently in Vietnam. One of the unique things about CES is not just a consulting company. In fact, right now, more than 80% of our revenue comes from services, where we actually work with more than 500 clients worldwide in managing more than 10 gigawatt of assets, including renewables, demand response, energy storage, electric vehicle fleets. So we have a very good perspective on actually what things are happening on ground, and some of the detailed impacts of the policies, and how some of the changes in the policies influences business. When I started India operation in 2010, after completing my PhD at CMU, that time the entire Indian emerging technology sector was just evolving. The major topic for discussion was around still supply shortage, and what do we need to do to try to catch up on the supply side. While having done work on my PhD at engineering and public policy, looking at economics of energy storage and demand response, I was convinced that actually in India, the value proposition of both these technologies would be much, much better given the supply demand constraints in India. So that's where in 2012, we decided to launch India Energy Storage Alliance, because changing policies does not happen with one company, however big that company is. And for policymakers also to have a confidence to enforce certain new policies, they need to see that there is a consensus amongst various diverse stakeholders on that. So with that view, we started IESA just with 5 members in 2012. Over the years now, it has grown to a 100-member strong alliance. We are still in early days of this sector, so we hope that we will grow much faster and help growth of industry in a faster way. But we are also working closely with almost 20 plus other international alliances in trying to make sure that we don't spend time in reinventing the wheel, and we can actually take some of the success stories or experiences from both policy implementation as well as business model implementation around the world, and use that to leapfrog this sector in India. Now, in last 7 years, I think most of the policymakers as well as industry leaders are convinced about India as a market. But now we have actually stepped up our game, and we have set a mission that we want to make India a global leader for R&D and manufacturing of these advanced energy storage and EV technologies as well. And that's where last 4 years, particularly, my team has been working tirelessly to get the right policies for supporting this. So the journey started in 2013, as Yash also mentioned that that was a time when former government also came up with a national electric mobility mission. But just announcing a mission doesn't help. There needs to be a lot of specific policies and regulations which are required, where there are probably more than 20 different government departments at center level, as well as maybe each state has at least 4 or 5 departments which influence how these policies get implemented on ground. So we have been working steadily across both top-down as well as bottom-up approach. We have worked closely with Ministry of Power, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Central Electricity Agency, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, as well as various state electricity regulatory commission, and then Department of Heavy Industries, as well as various state transportation departments over last 8 years in trying to frame both national level as well as state level policies. As I mentioned, in 2016, we launched this initiative for bringing focus on manufacturing related policies. And in 2017, we decided to launch a dedicated initiative called MOVE, Moving Onward Vehicle Electrification, where we decided to focus on the battery related to e-mobility, as well as the electric charging infrastructure as two key areas where we wanted to focus, being a small alliance. And then in 2018, we were fortunate that some of the work which we were doing also reached to the Prime Minister's office, where I got invited to be amongst 10 global experts to help government decide policy on solar manufacturing as well as energy storage. And based on that, now this year you have seen that in the recent budget, Finance Ministry has selected both solar as well as battery manufacturing as champion sectors. And there are a lot of incentives and specific initiatives coming up in this area. So it has been a long journey, but to some extent also the kind of results which we were able to achieve is very satisfying. Now coming to batteries, this is an area which is not a new quest. In fact, most of the people don't realize that there was a time when actually electric vehicles were more popular than IC engine vehicles, and that time was in early 1900s. What you are seeing on the screen is a cover page of 1911 Scientific American magazine with Thomas Edison. He had a joint venture with funding from Henry Ford, electric vehicle company, and Thomas Edison was particularly passionate about working on new battery for this electric vehicle. And I don't know if all of you can read the right-hand side image, but it says 1,000-mile endurance run, where basically he was trying to work on nickel-ion batteries, which could have lasted for a total distance driven of 1,000 mile. It was not on a single charge 1,000 mile, which now some companies are aiming to achieve, but this was 1,000 mile as a total life. Whereas now recently Tesla has announced, and number of companies have the batteries which can actually provide almost 1,000,000-mile driving range. So this is the kind of exponential improvement which has happened. Number of times it's easy for people to blame, saying that, oh, battery technology isn't progressing enough, and that's what is holding off either smaller cell phones or electric vehicles. But one of the things is we keep on also stretching the performance parameters which are required for defining success. Now, one of the question always comes in India, but also around the world, is the price. That are electric vehicle affordable? And this is a part where there has been tremendous improvement which has happened in last 10 years. Back in 2010, when we worked on the first grid scale energy storage project, lithium-ion batteries were actually costing more than $1,000 per kilowatt hour. Whereas right now the prices have come down somewhere around $120 to $130 per kilowatt hour at cell level. So in less than 10 years, there is almost a 10x reduction, not 10%, but 10x reduction which has happened in the price. And partly this is driven by the maturing of the technologies and also scaling up of manufacturing, where you will notice that back in 2010, probably around the world, there was only around 10 gigawatt hour of annual production capacity. Whereas right now that production capacity has crossed 350 gigawatt hour. And according to various estimates, by 2025, the global manufacturing capacity for lithium-ion batteries would increase to almost 1,500 gigawatt hour. And that is expected to drive down the prices below $100 per kilowatt hour, which makes the economics much more better. But price is not the only parameter. There are a number of other parameters such as energy density, cycle life, depth of discharge, temperature tolerance. These are all very important parameters. And what is most exciting for us when we work with number of leading global companies as well as some of the startups who are trying to stretch this envelope, there is tremendous improvement happening, and it is expected to happen at least for another 5 to 10 years, where people are working on a lot of materials. There are things which are happening on improving not just at a cell level, but at BMS level or at packaging level. There is a lot of research happening. and that is expected to drive some of this performance improvements across multiple parameters. And this is one area where if there are any fellow alumnus who are working on starting new companies, then I would suggest or I would request actually that you need to pay attention beyond price, because this is the part where I have felt challenge in India, where number of companies have only focused on price as the only parameter in deciding their supplier. And we think that if you are making your electric vehicles based on just some cheaper batteries, then you may be actually not able to meet the performance expectations of your users, and that may hurt the actual adoption of those vehicles. Whereas if you can actually understand the performance requirement for various applications and choose the right batteries for it, then the market is actually quite exponential. So one thing which we are doing it is, apart from doing work with the supplier side, we are also trying to work with various corporates to try to improve the adoption. And one thing which basically our philosophy is that in most of the discussions, we keep on hearing people that, oh, when the batteries reach $60 per kilowatt hour, there will be a great adoption for electric vehicles. Whereas what we feel is that even at $200 or $250 per kilowatt hour, there are at least 20% of the IC engine users can actually save money if they switch to electric vehicles. The challenge is that people keep on waiting for things to happen on average for everyone. And there are a number of people who would keep on spending a lot more in terms of their total cost of ownership for IC engine vehicle just to get a cheaper electric vehicle upfront. But we have seen this changing in last 3 years, particularly with some of the emergence of electric vehicle-based fleet operators such as Lithium Urban Technologies, Blue Smart, E3 taxis, where they have been running now and scaling their business profitably by purely building a business around electric vehicles. So now we think this doesn't have to limit only to fleet vehicles. So we are launching this initiative actually next week at the India Mobility Conclave, where we will be working with various corporates to help track driving patterns of their existing vehicles. And through analysis, we will recommend to them which particular routes they can adopt, which electric vehicles, and also what type of a charging infrastructure requirement should be built. Because on one side, we are seeing number of cities are building electric vehicle fleets with almost around 200 or 250 kilowatt hour battery packs, where the average distance driven by those buses is only around 20 or 25 kilometers. Now, if you have the right charging infrastructure and the right batteries on the buses, you can actually have electric buses with only 60 kilowatt hour battery packs. So rather than waiting battery prices to come down by 50% for a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack, if you choose the right quality batteries with 60 kilowatt hour battery pack and build the associated charging infrastructure, you can actually start saving money right now. So these are the type of things which we are working on, and we are fortunate that through IESA membership, we have a number of companies including EESL, which is a PSU, the Energy Efficiency Services Limited, Bosch, and others are supporting this initiative and getting actively involved with this. So overall, we believe that next 5-6 years, the market is going to grow exponentially. In terms of the numbers, two-wheelers and three-wheelers will drive this market, and Suleja is an expert in this area, so I haven't included too many details on it. But this is both because of the current dominance of the electric three-wheelers and as well as two-wheelers. We do expect that even when you look at the market as a cumulative market for 2026, this would be more than 50% market will come from these two segments, and the market would be more than 100 gigawatt hour as a cumulative market. And although the presentation is on electric vehicle side, I just thought I will touch base on one slide that there is also a lot of opportunity for stationary energy storage, for applications for renewable integration, for reducing diesel consumption, for providing better power quality reliability as compared to using the conventional lead acid batteries. There are a lot of opportunities there, and we do expect that that market also would be more than 250 gigawatt hour between now and 2026. Although half of this market would continue to remain with existing technologies like lead acid batteries, and half of the market we are expecting will shift towards newer technologies, including lithium-ion batteries, flow batteries, or other forms of gravity storage or other technologies. One area which is very exciting for us and particularly very close to my heart is the innovative ecosystem, because number of times people have said that if you have to work with startups or this ecosystem, you need to continue working in Bay Area. But we see this change happening, and example of Sulaja as well as number of other startups who are part of the ISA ecosystem. We see a very strong belief amongst the current generation of Indian entrepreneurs where they can make this transition. And as the ISA, we are looking at supporting this, and we are also launching an accelerator program on 22nd September, which is a World Energy Storage Day. And we are also celebrating this with 20 plus international partners to bring first time in the world 20-hour telethon, where we are going to cover from 10 a.m. in Australia, so that would be around 5 or 5:30 a.m. in India time, going up to California, and the event will end actually just little after midnight India time. So it would be around 18 to 20-hour telethon covering entire world update on energy, both stationary as well as e-mobility on a single day. Also in November, we will host a 5-day India-specific event called India Energy Storage Week. And next week, as I mentioned, we are hosting a dedicated full-day conference on e-mobility. So if any one of you are interested on this, then feel free to reach out to me for any information. Also, we have started some magazine called Emerging Technology News, as well as a podcast. If you are a fan of podcasts, then please look for Emerging Tech Radio on iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud. And there are also a lot of free information which is hosted on the ISA website for general audience. So please let me know if that helps you or if you have any specific questions. So with that, I would love to now hand it over to Sulaja and hear about her story and her journey. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Rahul. Before we hand over to Sulaja, I thought I'd ask a few questions that I'm sure people have written a little bit about in the Q&A and in general. So Rahul, what do you think? Which segments of the EV market or the EV sector do you think will really pick up, and what do you think in terms of the timeline, how that's going to affect India's entry of EVs?
Yeah. So as I showed in the sort of our projection for next 7 years, we do expect that 2 and 3 wheelers will drive this segment because that's the area where you are working with relatively smaller battery packs with, like, say 1 to 3 kilowatt hour, and you have the ability to recharge those, or in certain segments customers are not actually driving to long distance, so those smaller battery packs are very comfortable for these vehicles. We see adoption happening there, but at the same time we do see actually in the 4-wheeler segment, again this is just a hypothesis which we may be completely wrong, but we think the adoption is slower in India because actually lack of good quality products. Like for example, for almost like 10 plus years, we had only option of just Mahindra or Reva as a only electric vehicle in India, where there are other products such as, say, Prius or others, which are hybrid products. Unfortunately, the way the government policies are structured, there is a very heavy import duty and other taxes on those. So those are actually holding up these products off the market. So as a ISA, we are trying to work on trying to address some of these policy barriers, which is unfortunately stopping some of the hybrid vehicles or other segments to not take up. If we are successful, then we think actually even the other segments will drive relatively fast. And we think the economics should drive it. It's not that everyone should go and buy an electric vehicle right now. For example, I am personally drive less than 5 kilometers per day. In that case, there is not going to be an economic case. I may still choose an electric vehicle for other reasons, but it's not going to be an economic reason. But at the same time, if there is someone who is driving more than 150 kilometers per day, then right now at the current prices, he would save money by switching to electric vehicle, and that awareness is not there. So we're trying to address that gap to try to pick up the market.
Wonderful. And if there is any advice as to where you think some of us can ask these questions and really learn more, are there any resources or spaces you can recommend, other than, of course, your events that you are having, which is outstanding, but anything else for the Indian market specifically?
Yeah, so I can give one sort of a common address which was there on the last slide of my presentation, which is contact@indiaesa.info, because it is then not just me, because sometimes I get too many emails and I may be a little late on responding. So, but if you write to contact@indiaesa.info, there is a team of 10 people who actually look after that account, and you would get a quick response to that. We have also tried in past doing something like having a hotline where people can just dial a 1-800 number with their question. But now with emergence of more sort of a electronic communication, we didn't find that number was very helpful. So we have stopped it. But again, through IESA website, you can submit your questions or directly just write to contact@indiaesa.info.
Wonderful, great. Okay, thanks, Rahul. Thanks so much. We'll move a little bit forward into our next talk right now. Our inspiring guest is Sulajja. Thank you for joining us once again, Sulajja. To give a little bit of background, Kinetic Green is one of the first companies to have started with three-wheeler electric vehicles in India. They've done a tremendous job in manufacturing, designing, and selling over 25,000 vehicles already. And since they've started, they've also signed a joint venture with Torino Lamborghini SPA, as many of you all know, is a very famous entity in Italy. So please, Sulajja, all to you now. Hi, Sulajja, can you hear us?
Hi, good evening to everyone, and very nice to be with all friends. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, I hope that my voice is clear. I'm getting a little bit of a disturbance.
No, I think we're good to go. Go for it.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so very happy to be with all of you, all the friends from Carnegie Mellon, and thanks for spending this evening with us and chatting about this topic that's really close to my heart. Very happy to do that. I want to thank Rahul for his amazing insights on the battery technology. And what I'm hoping to do is really spend a little bit of time on the EV market as a whole in India, share some of our experiences, which could be useful to all of you, and then share my thoughts with you on what are the opportunities in the EV sector for those who are having entrepreneurial ambitions. So with that, I want to share a brief presentation which I put together for all of you. So can you see the presentation? Can you see the slides?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, great. So a little bit about what's happening with EVs as a whole in India right now. Very briefly, of course, the long-term drivers are the clean air that everybody would love to take India towards. Issues like fuel security. This is why globally EVs are becoming popular. But more importantly, I think the time for EVs has come because I would say that this is a technology of the future, of which time has come. I'll give example to you that solar, for example, as a clean energy, it has been around for many years, but over the last 5 to 6 years, the government policy came together, cost of the solar technology came down, governments around the world pushed adoption by doing mass sourcing, financiers came forward to finance solar projects, customers became more aware about the technology, and as a result, adoption increased multifolds. Something similar is happening in EV right now. It's a better technology, it's cleaner, it's greener, it's simpler. But around the world, with government policy, with financing becoming available, cost and technology improvements being seen in battery side, the whole ecosystem is now coming together. And that's really what is driving the momentum. So it's not one factor, but a host of factors coming together, which is now taking EV to a mass adoption possibility. Broadly around the world, EVs are growing, expected to grow at 33% per year. China and US dominating the market trend, and also many markets of Europe also accelerating their EV adoption. Coming to India, of course, India is the 4th largest automobile market in the world. and the world's largest two-wheeler and world's largest three-wheeler market. So I want to make a point here that Indian in transportation sector is different from the transportation sectors of other nations. So when people think electric in the US or Europe, it's electric car. But in India, it is not necessarily electric car. 80 to 90% people in India are commuting on two-wheelers and on three-wheelers or in buses. So if you speak about the numbers and also the social impact of reduction in air pollution of EVs, it will come through adoption by these segments. So green mobility for the masses is what's going to make a difference in a developing nation like ours. 10,000 cars won't reduce the pollution, but lakhs of two-wheelers and three-wheelers will make a big impact on the air in the country. So that's, I think, an important point to kind of take home, that India has a different transportation structure than other nations. Now, coming again a little bit deeper, why we are very bullish on electric three-wheelers and two-wheelers, and possibly the delivery vehicles as being the drivers for electric mobility in India. If you see the use case, right, the daily run of the vehicle, the shorter it is, the less energy that you need. So EVs become affordable, immensely affordable. Of course, the run should not be too short, but it should not be too long. So if you buy a car, for example, you want it to be able to go from Bombay to Nasik or Pune to Goa. But if you buy a two-wheeler, it's going to be mostly, intra-city, not intercity. Similarly, if you have a smaller range requirement, you don't need a lot of charging infrastructure, because you can come back to your home or wherever you're parking your vehicle and charge it. And more interestingly, for smaller vehicles like two and three-wheelers, you don't need a special charging equipment. You can simply use a 3-pin plug at your home and charge your vehicle in between, in between 2 and 4 hours. So the requirement of charging infrastructure is absolutely done away with. So in a nation where we don't have yet charging infrastructure, the light mobility or the small vehicles can flourish because they don't need this kind of charging infrastructure to come up. So the economic viability of electric vehicles for three-wheelers and two-wheelers, or the commercial use case, is very high. To see the green, the dots at the bottom, I think that's what's going to drive the adoption. Government, of course, would like to electrify the public transport like buses, but that's with a lot of subsidies. But of course, with the social goal to electrify common man's transport. But these vehicles which are going to immensely pick up are the small light mobility platform vehicles, three-wheelers, two-wheelers, and small LCVs. If you again look at the TCO, if you look at over a 5-year period, it's almost a 50% cost arbitrage on a TCO basis for an electric three-wheeler or electric two-wheeler vis-a-vis ICE vehicles. So while there may be an upfront initial cost premium, but over a period of 3 to 5 years, you're going to save immensely on the total cost of ownership. And because of currently falling battery prices and also interesting models like battery swapping coming up, we are expecting that even upfront price premium would now no longer be an issue very shortly. I'll come to that in a few minutes. So this is a little bit about why I believe that EV sector is slated for a great momentum in our country. It's a good technology of the future. And with every tightening of emission norm, the ICE vehicles are now becoming heavier and more expensive. So with BS6 coming, cost of ICE vehicles has gone up by 10 to 12%. And that's also helping EVs, because if the alternative is much more is less affordable, and EVs are becoming more attractive, it's going to accelerate the adoption of EVs. So I think this technology is here to stay. And we expect that this is the future of the automotive technology. Because, as I said, it's greener, it's cleaner, it's simpler, it's cheaper, it's also in tune with customer psyche. Younger generation wants electric, electronics, software, and these vehicles are actually like tablets on wheels. You can customize everything. So I think it's also in line with how the young generation is thinking. They're very well suited for autonomous vehicles, well suited for shared mobility, for IoTs. So I think this is just the right technology for the future, and that's why it's going to be the technology of the future. As I said before, even the government in India has now decided that they're going to focus on electric light mobility, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and buses. And that's also where they're putting most of their money under the FAME scheme. And their vision really, as described by Mr. Amitabh Kant of Niti Aayog, is green mobility for the masses. So government is putting the money where the mouth is, as seen by their policy scheme under FAME 2. A little bit about Kinetic Green and our journey. We are a very passionate group of EV believers. We are part of a large established group, Kinetic, but we are organized like a pure play EV startup. So we have best of both worlds. We have a strong brand, we have knowledge, experience, reputation, connections in this industry, but our company, Kinetic Green itself, is like a startup. So it's really, as I said, best of both worlds that we are tapping into. Our vision is green mobility for millions, and we are focused on light mobility solutions, three-wheelers. We have a complete range from passenger vehicles as well as cargo or goods carrier vehicles, from low speed, which is 25 kilometers an hour, to 55 kilometers an hour, which is high speed in the light mobility space. We also have many formats of our vehicles, which I will show you later. A few road carriers, garbage collection vehicles, subsidy delivery vehicles, e-sprayers, e-foggers. So a lot of SPVs that we have tried to bring to the market. We also manufacture and sell golf carts. And as Yash mentioned, a very exciting range of golf carts designed by Lamborghini in Italy is going to be made now by Kinetic Green in India and marketed globally. We also plan to come back in two-wheelers very shortly, not yet launched, but Kinetic, of course, knows two-wheelers, and that's something we're excited about. And Kinetic has one of the few R&D centers, EV R&D centers, which are recognized by the government, by DSIR. So we focus always on innovation and a focused approach to our business model, which is light mobility. And unlike others who are on the drawing board, we actually have manufactured and sold close to 25,000 vehicles, and sold them at profit, not by burning cash, but by really working hard to create a compelling commercial case. We aim to be a 4,000 crore company in the next 4 years. So very bullish and very passionate about this business. Also focus has been on innovation and social impact. We were the first to launch lithium-ion battery vehicles, the first to get government recognition as R&D, first to launch battery swapping, first to qualify for FAME subsidy with 100% localization levels. So we thrive on innovation and making a difference. Some of our products, just to give you a sense of what we are making. This is our passenger e-rickshaw. It's all steel body, and as you can see, it's like an L5 auto, strong, rugged built. These are our loader vehicles. So this right one here is meant for e-commerce, for last mile deliveries. Then we have some for industrial use. Some SPVs, like we had this developed for Corona times, e-sprayers and e-foggers. Also an e-subsidy for home delivery of subsidy has been launched. We've also recently brought out an electric cycle, again, for those who are interested in environment, health, and also it's got a cool quotient. And again, personal mobility is coming back due to COVID. So I think this model product also will have good response. These are current golf carts, 2-seater all the way to 16-seater. And just to give you a glimpse of what we're going to do with the Lamborghinis, I just have one picture. You can look at this kind of a golf cart coming from the house of Kinetic Green. And we have a complete range of these beautiful babies that are going to be coming out in the coming years. Again, these are all electric. That's a little bit about us, what we do. Now coming to our journey and what challenges we have faced, which could be useful to the entrepreneurs amongst you looking at EV sector. I think the first and foremost was lack of government policy when we launched our vehicles. In 2015, there was really no clarity on the government side, on the products, the segments they wanted to focus on, the taxation front, on import duties. And I think over the last 5 years, we have worked extremely hard along with the policymakers to bring about a focus on what we are calling green mobility for the masses, and to launch many initiatives like the FAME 2 scheme, lower GST, waiver of road tax, waiver of permits, and through various forums we have worked closely. And I think today I'm happy to say that there is a fair amount of clarity on the government side, and there's a focus to make in India green. The second had been a lack of EV technology and domain knowledge. We began a project, there was really nothing happening in the country. So we tied up with CSIR, which is India's leading science institution, and 2 of their labs to create a first electric 3-wheeler platform. We also worked with other leaders in the world for batteries, for powertrain, and tried to get technology from various sources and then put it all together to make a viable business model. We never relied on subsidies to make our business model viable, but subsidy always was seen as a gravy. The third and I think biggest challenge had been lack of customer awareness, risk aversion on part of customers, lack of knowledge about EVs, and also in India always jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. So if you're buying a vehicle and there are no electric vehicles on the road, why would you buy an electric vehicle? Why would you be the first guinea pig to take that risk? And while we set up our retail network, there really wasn't any pull from the customers. So what we have done over the last 3-4 years is done a lot of innovative marketing and use social impact schemes as a way to create population. I want to show you a few examples. For example, we work with the Uttar Pradesh government and we came up with a scheme to give e-rickshaws to cycle rickshaw pullers in UP. And 10,000 cycle rickshaw pullers were trained by us. And we gave them these vehicles supported by the UP government. This was a very successful scheme. We set up 300 service and charging stations across Uttar Pradesh. Then we worked with some governments, like this is the Chhattisgarh government, where we gave electric rickshaws to women as means of empowerment and livelihood creation. Again, supported by the local administration as a welfare scheme. We gave hundreds of vehicles in this scheme. Recently, we worked with the AP government and we are giving 8,000 vehicles across entire Andhra Pradesh, one vehicle per village for garbage collection. So each vehicle will go to each village, one vehicle will go to a village and collect garbage from various homes. And many such schemes where we work with NGOs, local governments, state governments to create population of electric vehicles. We have also actually tied up with metro authorities in Lucknow and Kochi and deployed our own fleets, which we are running to provide customers a first-hand e-mobility experience. And once they sit in an electric three-wheeler, they really appreciate the silent ride, vibration-free ride, the cost effectiveness, and then they, the word spreads. So instead of waiting for the market to be created, we have worked with various stakeholders to create opportunities for deployment. And I think this has been key in our innovation and marketing. Next, of course, issue is high upfront cost of EVs. And here, of course, the government FAME to policy helped. We worked very hard to qualify for it. But our first electric three-wheeler had 60% import content. And now we are down to hardly 8 to 9%, which also would be zero shortly. So we work very hard to qualify for government policy by localizing our product rapidly, by bringing out better quality vehicles to meet the performance parameters. And now disruptive ideas like battery swapping, fleet aggregation, battery leasing are going to make a big difference in really making upfront cost of EVs a non-factor. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. The second issue has been a concern and remains a concern is the lack of financing for EVs from banks. So I'm talking about retail customers, the two-wheeler and three-wheeler customers. They need loans. And this is a problem that the existing bankers and NBFCs are not coming forth to finance electric vehicles. Maybe because of their concern that it's a new technology, it's a nascent technology, concern on the resale value of the vehicles. And just maybe, inertia because they're getting good business on the ICE vehicles. I think for this, the only solution has been that we have to meet the stakeholders. We have to speak to them. We have to continuously upgrade the quality of our vehicles. We have to just, can you close the door? It's really bothering me. Thank you. Also, once we have moved from lead acid to lithium ion battery vehicles, that has helped a lot because now the loan period is 3 years and the battery warranty is also for 3 years on lithium ion batteries. So we have to reach across the financials and explain to them the safety of electric vehicles. But this remains a concern which the entire industry is working on. And last, of course, is, we wanted to localize, but there is no local supply chain for electric vehicles because there's no market. So what comes first, population or supply chain, chicken or egg? So here what we did was we took a collaborative effort with the industry. We used our relationships in the industry and we went to leading suppliers of different automotive systems. And we said that, okay, let's partner. We will share you with the knowledge we have of the market. We will help you with the requirements and the SORs to design the product together. some cases we invested in the design and we only gave them a build to print kind of a opportunity. So by investment and knowledge sharing, we have got good suppliers like Hella, TVS Lucas to come on board. Our own group companies, Kinetic Engineering, Kinetic Communications, Kinetic Electric, are now investing and they are now making a lot of the components for us. We've gone to leading suppliers like Gabriel, FIAM, Minda, Precol, who supply components to other ICE vehicles and try to kind of get a buy-in from them to come to the EV side. I think this is some of the pioneering work that we have done, which has of course benefited us in the short run, but I think the entire industry in the long run. But it's been an exciting journey full of these kind of challenges of lack of ecosystem, which as I mentioned is now coming together. But it's been a lot of fun. Now looking ahead, what are the opportunities in the EV sector in the coming years? I think the first message which I hope I have been able to convey to all of you is that the largest opportunities which can be scaled up are in electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers and e-buses. And all that goes along with it, whether it's the ecosystem, charging infrastructure, fleet aggregation, component supply. In the next 5 years, this is where the action will be. And issues like range anxiety, lack of charging infrastructure, cost, higher upfront cost are definitely limiting the short-term potential for electric cars in India. I'm not saying that electric cars will not come. Electric small cars will come, fleets will come, but maybe it will take 3 to 4 to 5 years at least. And given the current state of automobile industry post-COVID, I don't see that electric cars would become mainstream for the next 5 years. But two-wheelers and three-wheelers, we can see great penetration opportunities over the starting, right away. Some of the areas which are interesting is last mile connectivity and last mile delivery. So fleet operation using EVs or delivery using electric vehicles. There is a clear cost arbitrage. The cost of an electric vehicle is 50 paisa per kilometer vis-a-vis 3 to 4 rupees for a petrol or diesel vehicle per kilometer. So it's a fraction, it's 1/10 of running cost compared to that running cost of a petrol or diesel vehicle. So certainly you're going to make more money because you're going to earn the same by running same number of kilometers, but you're going to spend much less. So the delta margin available is that much larger for the owner, driver, customer. So I think fleet aggregation is a great opportunity. Last mile delivery, putting your vehicles for e-commerce, you could own a fleet. There's a great demand. We are working currently with Amazon, Flipkart, Big Basket, all of these guys. They have large sustainability targets. So using EVs for last mile delivery could be a very good opportunity. Ride sharing is also a good opportunity. Again, if you use ICE vehicle versus EVs, you're going to earn more because you're going to earn the same on the ride, but spend much less since there is no fuel. So ride sharing also, EV can give you a cost advantage. Then there's another opportunity, of course, is powertrain technology and components and battery packaging. So that's an area that's coming up. India has a good case for becoming suppliers to the world for powertrain, drivetrain components. And you can package batteries locally already for the local market. There is also opportunities on tech, IoTs, remote diagnostics, telematics, designing of EVs, lightweighting, alternate materials. There's good opportunities also in technology. In the long term, you have an opportunity to become a cell manufacturer. Of course, it requires huge capital. But if Indian market becomes a 50,000 crore market in the next 5 years, as it is predicted, the demand for batteries itself will increase. And at some point, cell manufacturing supported by government could be a viable proposition. Lithium recycling also will come up as more and more batteries get deployed. And as Rahul said, there is a strong stationary application post running the vehicle for 3 to 5 years as EV. You still have 70% DOD left in that battery, which can go for a stationary application, followed by lithium recycling. So that's another area that can be looked at. And the last opportunity, which I think is quite exciting, is battery swapping. I'll just spend 2 minutes on this because we're doing a lot of work in this area. Why does battery swapping make sense for India when it has not worked around the world? I always get asked this question. That's because India is a different market and you have many dense urban areas where electric vehicles are deployed. Other countries are based on suburb kind of a setup. And battery swapping does not work for cars. It only works for small vehicles, 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, and again running within intra-city. And India has hundreds of cities where these kind of vehicles are densely located. So I think it is going to come in India in a big way. It is going to work. It allows the vehicle cost to come down by 50%. That's the biggest benefit. So if I sell an electric vehicle for 2 lakh today, half of the cost is battery. You remove the battery, the cost has come down to 1 lakh. And your vehicle has become cheaper than a normal CNG auto. So you can actually sell your vehicles to many more customers because they can afford, more people can afford. And then battery as an energy source is also cheaper than petrol or diesel as an energy source. So even the running cost is cheaper than the alternate. It also addresses the issues like range anxiety, charging time, because there's no charging time. You just go and take a battery like you fill fuel in your vehicle. And the range anxiety also disappeared because you can keep going by swapping batteries. And this is not theoretical. We actually have worked with 2 leading partners, BPCL and Ola Electric. And we have 8 battery swapping stations running in Kochi, Lucknow, and Gurgaon, where we are swapping our batteries within 2 minutes. And if companies like BPCL, IOCL come in this in a big way, they have 30,000 petrol stations around the country where you can set up swap systems. And then you can also have hub and spoke and have many small battery swap locations. And really this can take electric 2 and 3-wheelers to a different level altogether, and it's coming. Ola Electric has raised $300 million for battery swapping as their business. And what it does is that it makes electric vehicles ecosystem same as ICE. So basically there's no range issue, no affordability issue, and there is a battery swapping center at every 2 kilometers. It will become mainstream, and this is what really is going to make a big difference. 2.9 lakhs, let's say, the high-speed auto. Without battery cost,
sorry, Sulaja, your voice is cutting in and out. Sulaja, sorry, your voice is cutting in.
Is it better now?
Not yet.
Okay, is it better?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, just give me a moment. I'll open the door. Is it? Hi, better? Hello.
Hi, yeah, still cutting in and out, Sulaja. I think, we may have lost her. I believe she'll be joining us back in a few moments. I think in the meantime, maybe Rahul, if you want to step in and answer some of these questions. Oh,
is it better? Sorry, I'm back. Yeah. Anyway, I think the presentation is pretty much done, so I don't need to go back to the slides. Just summarizing, I think the future for EVs is very bright, and there are many opportunities. And I think the time has come for EVs to become mainstream, and we are looking at a very exciting period ahead for all of us. So thanks a lot for this opportunity to talk to all of you.
No, thank you so much, Sulaja. I think the presentation was wonderful. Rahul, your presentation was also wonderful, and I'm really glad that you guys took the time out to talk to us and speak to us. I think I'll jump into asking Sulaja one more question before I hand it off to Asha, who will ask the remaining of the Q&A. Sulaja, as you were mentioning, what advice would you give some of these companies that they should focus on primarily to make sure that they can actually have an entry to the market?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. I said for some of the new entrants, what is some of the advice that you could give them that they should focus on or primarily pay attention to as they approach the EV space?
So I think that's where I shared that slide on opportunities. What are the areas which make immediate businesses? Focusing on vehicle manufacturing, component manufacturing, fleet operation, last mile delivery, last mile connectivity. I think these are the areas where there is good amount of juice to have a commercially viable entry into the electric vehicle sector.
Great. And if the enter, is there any analysis or OPEX or CapEx? Is there something in specific that you think that they should focus on as they enter in? Or is it?
I think last mile delivery is a very good opportunity. It depends on what is your vision and what is your capacity for investment. I think the opportunities can be tapped into various parts of the value chain, and they are across component manufacturing, last mile delivery, last mile connectivity. So these are not very high capex areas. If you look at something like vehicle manufacturing or cell manufacturing, these are high capex areas. So both services as well as manufacturing are available to you, and also component, depending on what is your interest, what is your investment capacity, you can really look at the right area for you.
Great. Thank you so much. Ashay, I'll leave it off to you for the.
Thank you, Yash, and thank you, Rahul and Sulajja. This was extremely enlightening, especially for someone like me who was a complete outsider to the industry. And it's one of the things that really stood out was that your companies and your positions are making it happen right now, as opposed to just being on the drawing board. So that is something very encouraging, because it's not just potential, it's execution, which is key. We have a lot of interesting questions. Over 30 questions in the Q&A. We'll try to get as much as possible. The first question comes from, before you ask your question to our participants, please introduce yourself, introduce what you do in your company, and then ask your question to either of the panelists or a general question as you wish. The first question comes from Abhishek Danekar. So Abhishek, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello guys. Can you hear me?
Hi Abhishek.
Hi. Hello Rahul. Hello Sulajja. It was really a nice presentation. It was enlightening, as Ashay mentioned. So I see that a lot of startups in the EV sector are coming up in both two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And I don't know about the four-wheeler market, but I think the standardization of the charging ports, as you mentioned, that there are like more and more charging infrastructures which are being built in India. So how do you see the port standardization of the charging stations?
So either Rahul or Sulajja, anyone can take it.
Let Rahul take that one.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so again, this is a very important point. This is the area where, sorry, I think there is some feedback coming in. Okay, yeah, so this is the area where a lot of work happening also globally. Obviously, there is...
one question, one moment. Sulajja, I think if you can, can you mute your audio? I think the feedback is coming off of you. Go ahead, Rahul.
Yeah. So in this area, there is a lot of work happening also internationally. So obviously, US had a standard, Japan tried to propose another standard, China has tried to propose, and also in India, India has also come up with a Bharat EV charging protocol for low voltage. And now regarding fast charging, especially DC charging, there is a discussion happening where would it be CHAdeMO, CHAIG or CCS, and how this can be integrated. There is a committee at Bureau of Indian Standards, ETD 51 committee, where there is a lot of active debate happening right now. It's just that I think the way the BIS committee works, I think getting consensus takes some time. But there is definitely a lot of work happening. There are also discussions happening, like for example, Tesla has been using certain adapters to try to make their chargers work in both Europe versus China versus US. So can India also allow those type of solutions? So there is a very active discussion happening right now in this. So we as a India Energy Storage Alliance, we have a technology working group where a number of EV charging companies, including Exicom, Fortum, Okaya, so all of them are part of that. And we are trying to gather inputs from them and then share those with the appropriate committee. So hopefully in next 6 months, you will see more clarity on this area.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you, Abhishek, for the question. The next question comes from Yash Mandavewala. So Yash, if you can unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then ask your question. You had a good question around large auto OEMs entering the space and what that would look like.
Sure, sure. So, hi guys, I'm Yash Mandavewala, CMU batch of 2013. I am currently an investor. So I just have a couple of questions. So, firstly, how are some of the large auto OEMs in our country, so the likes of Bajaj, Hero, Maruti, how are they sort of placed today to transition into an EV world, and what are the challenges that they're likely to face as EVs become a reality?
Sulaja, you want to take, or would you like me to answer?
Sulaja, I think.
Okay, I'll continue.
I think Sulaja's gone off.
Okay. Okay, so I'll continue. So again, this is the area where there is always a challenge. I think there is an innovator's dilemma when you have a large business running on certain thing, some of the new trends coming up. Although for a new startup, this may be like a really great area and a growth area. For large companies, often this is not enough to move the needle, and that faces problem. But most of these companies, like what Kinetic has done with Kinetic Green, similarly Hero has done, where they have invested in some of the promising startups like Ather. Similarly, on the automotive side, Tata Motors and Mahindra have made reasonable investments in this area. It's a question and debate. Have they tried too many things? Have they tried too less things? So that's again, different people have different view of that. But we definitely think that this is the area where OEMs may or may not hold the edge going forward. We have seen it happening in US as well, right? GM, Ford had big internal EV R&D programs way before Tesla was even conceptualized. But if you see right now, basically Tesla has dominated this segment in US. But that doesn't mean that OEMs cannot step up. We are especially seeing it in Europe, where companies like Volkswagen, Renault, they are actually, they have stepped up their game quite a lot, and they have realized that it's EV is not an option, but it's a survival strategy. And they have gone all in into this. Unfortunately, in India, we don't see that right now. In fact, some of the traditional auto OEM led associations have actually actively tried to stop the adoption of EVs. So we are trying to fight it out. But we see ultimately this transition is going to happen within next 3 to 5 years, as Sulaja mentioned, because the economics, the technology is happening. We still have a good chance. Auto industry is one of the greatest success stories for India in terms of the manufacturing, and we really hope that we don't lose this edge. But at the same time, this is an area of concern because we are also seeing now big presence from especially Chinese auto manufacturers who are trying to flood the market with range of electric cars and others. So time will tell if the OEMs wake up or not. But the good part is, at least on the two-wheeler side, we have a lot of, I think, domestic capabilities, and at least that area we should be able to hold off. And with the recent Atmanirbhar Bharat initiatives and some of the duties being imposed, we should have some advantage, but not too much time. So we need to, hopefully OEMs, someone is listening and they will wake up soon.
Thank you, Rahul. And I think one of the questions that were asked, and the panelists is no longer, the attendees no longer on, was around the dependence of raw materials from China in the EV space. How far are we from, being independent from that, and what does that road ahead look like?
Sure, that's an excellent question, and that is maybe in two parts. The way I read the question, I thought it was more on the battery side, but I will answer first it in a larger context. So if you look at sort of the EV complete ecosystem, there are various components. Battery is one key component, but there is a electric motor, there is a drivetrain, and some of the other components. And right now, I think in terms of especially electric motors, there was a big dependence on China, which is changing in last couple of years with companies like TVS, Lucas, and others setting up domestic manufacturing. Still, there is definitely concern about especially some of the rare earth materials and magnets which go into these electric motors. Right now, there is a global dependence on China. So there is also under the National EV R&D roadmap, which we are working with Department of Science and Technology, we are also trying to create a technology hub to look at alternate technologies in that area. When it comes to batteries, this is a question again often asked, oh, India doesn't have lithium, so how can India go for lithium-ion batteries? So this is a very strong misconception. With lithium-ion batteries, the amount of lithium content which goes in a lithium-ion battery is less than 3 or 5% of the value of the product. Also in terms of the weight, it's just the ions which are moving are lithium ions. So that's where the name comes in. It's not like a lead acid battery where 80% of the weight is lead in the battery. So that is not as much concern. Globally, if you see the countries who have the largest reserves in this area are Chile, Bolivia, Australia, and none of these countries have any domestic manufacturing. So there is no direct linkage in terms of the raw material availability and getting a gigafactory. At the same time, we are actually working very actively. In fact, just 2 days back, we held a roundtable on looking into supply chain for gigafactories, where we had the Joint Secretary of Mines who came in and explained about some of the work happening on new exploration. So some of these reserves are getting even explored in India. Already near Bangalore, there is one location where there is around sufficient lithium which can support around 100 gigawatt hour of manufacturing over the life. There is one more reserve which has recently been discovered near West Bengal. So in India, we have traditionally just never valued some of these minerals and we never explored it. So it's not that India does not have it. Once we start it, it would come up. But right now, I don't think that's a concern at all. This is a strategy used by people who do not want us to start getting on the manufacturing, where these doubts are being put into the mind of policymakers.
Sure. Thank you, Rahul. And Sulajja, I know you joined right now, but there was a question directed at you regarding OEMs entering the market, regarding Bajaj and your bigger players entering the market. So Rahul provided a perspective on that. Do you want to shed some light on what your view is on, traditional players entering the market?
Sure. Well, I think that electric vehicle is a disruptive opportunity. It's not an incremental opportunity. And when there is a big disruption in the markets, I think new heroes are born many times. If you look at a mobile segment, from mobile phones to smartphones, the new leaders are iPhone, Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo. Where are the Nokia and the Motorola's and, Blackberries of the world? So I think EVs are also such a disruptive opportunity. And if you look at the business model, it's a new age business model. It's not built on scale and on capacity creation like the traditional ICE model is built. For example, our company is an asset-light company. We lease our land building. We make all our components made, build to print by our supply chain partners, and we do only weld, paint, and test in-house. Compare this to a typical ICE model where there's huge investment, engine manufacturing. So, and we will end up having distributed manufacturing around different states to the customer. So it's a different age business model, different technology. It's about collaboration, software, a different kind of mindset as well. So I think it's a time for new heroes to be born, and you will see, time will show that many of the existing manufacturers may not be able to make the transition from ICE to EV. Some of them will, those who are already working on it, but many of them may not because it's a different business model. So I think it's an interesting time for new heroes to be born. I want to give you one example. In China, they currently sell 2.5 crore electric two-wheelers, electric scooters. And the top 20 companies who sell electric scooters, not even one of them is from the top 20 companies who made ICE motorcycles in China. So the ICE guys have gone way below in the market share when it came to EV. So I think it's a time for disruption. It's a time for new heroes to be born, and it's really anybody's game, in the coming years.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sulajja. And just a quick time check. I know you all graciously accepted to stay a little longer. So for our viewers, they've agreed to stay till around 7:45. So we have a time for a couple of more questions before we go into closing comments. The next question comes from Prashant Shembekar. So Prashant, I'm going to unmute you. So please introduce yourself and ask your questions. He had questions around battery performance and, three-wheeler applications, not restricted to necessarily auto rickshaws, but also beyond.
Right, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Prashant Shambekar from Dow Chemicals. And I congratulate you, especially Firodia madam, for their pioneering work. My first question, actually, probably you missed, was like, would you like to call electric three-rickshaw as Kamdhenu? That was my first basically question. And because, I mean, what you have done is phenomenal. As we have seen, apart from the traditional application, it is now also being used as a food cart. I mean, fogging and spraying was anyway proven, school van, even ambulance. I mean, that's the kind of potential. More entrepreneurship opportunities you are giving. And many more problems which we probably have not even thought it can solve. So there is definitely a very great potential. That's why I would like to term that as a Kamdhenu for time to come. And then all the credit would go to maybe Firodia madam being pioneer in this field. So that was not really a question. So the question starts now. Sorry for that. One is how confident are we on the battery performance for a life of the battery, especially if you're giving warranty of 4 or 5 years. And we know that the range kind of drops over a period of time. So that is the first question. I have a couple of more, but if you want to stop me, of course I can stop here.
Yeah, we can keep one question to that, since to keep check on time. So either Sulajja or Rahul, anyone can take that. Maybe both of you all can comment on that.
Yeah, so I'll put a general perspective, then maybe Sulajja can talk specifically about what Kinetic is doing in this area. So again, when it comes to batteries, even if you say lithium ion, right, it is not a single battery. Within lithium ion, there are probably 5 or 6 different chemistries of batteries. And within each chemistry, there are different quality batteries which are available. So for example, right now we are seeing lithium ion batteries which provide somewhere around 600 cycles life. So if you are looking at, say, e-rickshaw, it could provide basically maybe 18 months to 2.5 years kind of a life. Or there are some good quality batteries available which can even provide 8,000 or 10,000 cycle life, where actually what Sulajja mentioned in terms of the second life of these batteries, where once they have completed their application in the EV side, people are looking at using those batteries, then again packaging it for stationary application. For example, Tesla has announced, and in fact, right now there are a number of electric batteries which can provide somewhere around, say, 3,000 cycles is very common performance parameter now. So if you have a electric car with a range of, say, even 300 kilometers as a range, so that means you can have easily a vehicle which is going to give more than 100,000 kilometers driving range. Now that is clearly, I think, more than the life of most of the people what they use with their electric vehicle, except for maybe the commercial fleet operators who may use that in a shorter time span. So there, I think the battery performance is no longer an issue as long as you are choosing the batteries in a right way. One concern in Indian context is temperature, because a lot of times these battery warranties are given based on the performance of these batteries at 25 degrees. Whereas in India, obviously on the ground in summer, the temperatures may be in excess of 40 degrees. So unless you are doing also like a proper battery packaging, taking care of things at thermal management at the battery pack level, you may actually not have these batteries last. And that's where some of the battery companies right now, they are not giving warranties more than 3 years, because right now they just don't know exactly how the end user or the OEM is going to utilize those batteries in the vehicle and what type of the thermal management or other things which will be done. But otherwise, these batteries, we are seeing now number of applications where these batteries, good companies are giving warranties for more than 10 years.
Sure, thank you.
Got it. And Sulajja, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I would just add a OEM's perspective that battery is very critical to electric vehicle performance, because it's a large part of the vehicle cost as well for the customer, and definitely more innovation is expected. It's happening also, which will improve the cell chemistry, the life, the density. So lighter batteries with longer life, is where the market's going. And I think as more and more EVs come on the market, the innovation will actually accelerate. And now, if you know, solar energy costs 2.5 to 3 rupees per kilowatt hour, per unit, per unit. Vis-a-vis thermal, which is 10, in Maharashtra it's 13, but let's say other places 8. So it has actually become cheaper. Same thing will happen in electric also. The batteries will become so efficient that it will make absolutely, it will be a no-brainer to be a EV customer. As far as we are concerned, we are learning about customers' application and then deciding the batteries. We're working with good battery partners, not trying to go for the cheap chemistry because, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. But we have seen that for our electric three-wheelers, for example, the driver is more concerned about the life, is more concerned about the commercial earning, from the vehicle. So they use the lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are a little bigger, but they have a 3-year warranty. They expect about 1,500 to 2,000 cycles. On the smaller vehicles like two-wheelers, it is all about weight. So it's more, we use the lithium ion, any same batteries, the NMC batteries. Battery swapping, again, it's about weight, so it's NMC battery. So it depends on the application. And I think if battery swapping becomes more popular, it will also actually ensure better life for batteries because they'll be charged in a controlled environment, they'll be properly maintained. So that will be another benefit of battery swapping. That customer doesn't have to worry about the battery, it's a problem of the energy operator.
Got it. Thank you.
Actually, if I may just add, although we talked about lithium-ion batteries and that's the future, but right now, in fact, there is a more than 500,000 e-rickshaws with lead-acid batteries are also operating on the road. And we have, in fact, as under ISA, we have been doing some R&D projects where we have even looked at certain new type of chargers for lead-acid batteries, which can actually help these current e-rickshaw operators to get like a top-up charging in the afternoon for 1 hour. Because the problem what current e-rickshaw operators with lead-acid batteries they face is that they typically get around 80 or 90 kilometer driving range in a day on a single charge, whereas they would ideally like to drive somewhere between 120 to 140 kilometer per day to earn the sufficient income as compared to the IC engine-based regular rickshaw. So what we have done it is we have come up with Chhabi Electricals, which is a Maharashtra-based electrical equipment charging manufacturer. We have designed a new lead-acid battery charger, which can actually provide top-up charging from say 30% to 70% charging in 1 hour for even lead-acid batteries. And we have already done testing in West Bengal area. And now hopefully in next 6 months, we are looking at introducing that as a commercial product. So as a ISA, we are again not trying to just support new technologies. The idea behind ISA is to try to work with both existing as well as emerging technologies to try to make the transition faster and easier.
Got it. Thanks so much. And, unfortunately, we're at time and we had a phenomenal 40 questions this time. I think what Rahul mentioned at the top is any of the panelists, if you're attendees, if you're interested in asking questions, shoot us an email and then, we'll try our best to filter the questions and connect you. Thanks again for all your time, Sulajja and Rahul. I will invite Yash, Anshul and Rekha back on to provide the closing comments. Rekha, on to you. Please turn on your video.
Yeah. It's what an amazing session. I think especially for many of us, like Asha said, who are kind of, uninitiated at this point in time. I think besides the great insights that we've got, which are right from, battery technology to the innovative marketing and how to actually really make this happen, right? The practical aspects of it. I think one thing which really struck me is I think the passion that both Rahul and Sulajja have for this entire area and their vision, courage, and of course the passion to actually, foray into this at a time when there was really, not much happening in India and, there was no real government support, no proper policy. So I think really hats off to both of you for that. I think that's really, really amazing, very, aspirational. And I think also it's amazing to, to know about the opportunities which exist, for startups. And I think Sulajja's point on time to create new heroes will probably give a lot of inspiration to those who are looking to get into this field. So I think it's been great. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank, our volunteers, Yash and Anshul and Asha, who have really worked very hard at putting this entire event together. I think, our Mumbai chapter has really been, blessed with wonderful volunteers, a lot of young people. and who have a lot of drive, a lot of energy, and we are able to put together so many events only because of all of them. So thank you very much. And one quick announcement from my side is that our next event is going to be on August 21st with Ashish Chauhan, who's the founder and director of the Bombay Stock Exchange. So I'm sure that's going to be another very interesting and fascinating event. Hope to see all of you back there and more people too. Okay, thanks. And over to you, Yash, for closing.
Thank you, Rekha. I'm just going to mimic what Asha and Rekha said. Both Rahul and Sulajja, you have done outstanding work in your individual fields and collectively are showing us what sort of promises that the EV market can show. And honestly, I personally feel very inspired, and I'm sure many of the attendees today also feel the same way. So once again, thank you so much for taking up the time and spending the effort and energy in putting this together. I think we, as an overall, really are looking forward to what you guys achieve in the future and how we can be part of that run. So thanks again so much, Rahul. Thank you so much, Sulajja. And
Thank you.
good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.